Happy last day, everybody. Start with comments from the audience. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to make a comment this evening? Do we have any additions to the agenda? No. To routine.
Sorry, you moved on a little too quick. I was still getting ready. I have it as well.
Public comment?
I would like to make a comment.
Sure. Name and address for the record, please.
Only because a couple board members asked me to read into the record the response that I sent to a constituent who reached out to me today with the question, well, could Bolton simply hire a part-time superintendent and have one of our principals be the part-time superintendent and a part-time principal? So I drafted a response and with some input from Kristen, shared it with the constituent and the rest of the board. And as I said, a couple asked if I would read it in. So my response was, great question. The short answer is no. The superintendent role could not be effectively combined with that of one of our two principals. Of all the Connecticut school districts with part-time superintendents, 0 to my knowledge have a high school, and most, if not all of them, are considerably smaller than Bolton itself. For example, Ashford has fewer than 400 students. Andover has fewer than 200. Scotland has fewer than 100, and Holbrook and Norfolk have fewer than 80. All of those have part-time superintendents. So while Bolton might seem like a small district, currently 672 students, it is actually considerably larger than most districts that have part-time superintendents. Whether a superintendent could simultaneously serve as a principal is also dubious. Under state law, certain responsibilities of a superintendent are not permitted to be delegated to a principal. And combining the positions could also potentially create chain of command and hierarchy issues within the district. The Connecticut State Department of Education would also need to approve a waiver to allow a district to appoint someone to a dual principal superintendent role. And historically, it has been reluctant to do so. Again, that's because a principal and a superintendent have legally distinct roles, and best practice is not to blur them. Furthermore, the administrative workload has grown tremendously over the last few decades, largely due to unfunded mandates imposed by state and federal governments. The job of meeting these mandates, whether they involve filing additional reports, developing new state-required courses, or implementing updates to school climate legislation, largely falls on our administrators, adding to their existing responsibilities, and Bolton's administration is already stretched thin, especially since the board voted last year to remove the Dean of Students position. The BHS principal then had to absorb many of the dean's responsibilities. I doubt any one person could successfully manage the scope of duties required by both positions. The only way I could see Bolton succeeding with a part-time superintendent would be if we closed the high school, and even then I'm not sure it would work unless we were sharing the superintendent with a tiny under 80 students district. It's perhaps also worth noting that spending on Bolton schools has increased at a slower rate than spending on town government over the last decade. Despite the lower budget growth, Bolton Public Schools have arguably added more services and improved existing services more effectively than the town has. For example, Bolton High has added many new course offerings, including new AP courses, new college credit opportunities, partnerships with other districts and local colleges, most at no additional cost to taxpayers. BCS has added dedicated curriculum specialists who help teachers improve their pedagogy and to work with students who need extra help. And district-wide, we've increased extracurriculars and invested heavily in technology access. So every student now has a computer, and our computer network is more robust and more secure. In the last decade, our entire curriculum has been revamped to comply with new state standards. The high school was successfully reaccredited, and we arguably navigated COVID more smoothly than many districts. with state test results showing that Bolton continues to trend well above the state average. The state seems to agree, as it recently named Bolton High a school of distinction for our students' high performance. Has the town increased or improved services to a similar degree, despite being the beneficiary of a 31.27% increase in funding from FY 2016 to FY 2025? That doesn't include debt service and CAPA, by the way. In contrast, over the same period, the school budget has increased only 22.86%. The cumulative rate of inflation from 2015 to 2024 was 32.3%. Had the school budget simply kept pace with the increase in the Board of Selectmen's budgets, the FY 2025 Board of Ed budget would have been $1.13 million higher.
Thank you. That was very well said. I think these kinds of messages can really benefit a lot of people who are asking similar questions to us. Anyone else who would like to make a comment from the audience? All right, back to routine business and the approval of minutes. Could we have a motion, please, to approve the May 8th, 2025 Board of Education business meeting? So moved. Ben,
Second motion.
is there anyone who has any questions or edits about these minutes? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed or abstaining? I heard everybody. Now looking for a motion to approve the minutes of the May 21st, 2025 Board of Education special meeting.
Second that too.
Does anyone have any questions or edits on these minutes? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Everybody. On to BOE committee reports and finance.
Sure. So Finance Committee met today. Obviously, we're in the beginning of the budget cycle, and so lots to talk about tonight. From a transfer standpoint, in your packet, you have the listing of transfers. We'll go through those. I'd say that a routine. The first one for $243.13 is to reclass building administration to cover gifts for staff appreciation. The second one for $790.21 is to cover BCS instructional supplies. Third one for $76 is to for reclasses to pay for pizza for students that helped out with preparation, set up and take down at the art show in May. The third one for $18.39 is to cover shipping costs for supply orders for online subscriptions. The next one's for $50 to cover the cost of Connecticut Colt Seal biliteracy stickers and pins for the students. The next one for $600 to cover flowers and additional adult graduation gowns for the graduation ceremony. And then the last one is split up, totaling $1,779.84 to cover paper shortfall for paper at VHS timesheets and supplies.
Could we have a motion to approve the May transfers, please? So.
No second.
Does anyone have any questions or comments about these? Particularly substantial. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstaining.
The next item to talk about the projected budget balance for this year, we are 83% expended. I'm actually going to ask if Kristen, Superintendent Hecht, or Casal would maybe go through some of the details. I think at this point in the budget cycle, it's kind of important to go through the different categories, so that might be helpful. And then we'll go through the, projected remaining, balance.
Yep, I'm just pulling it up on my end, so give me 1 sec, please. Okay, so we are projecting a balance in regular instruction of 27-24, and hopefully we can spend that down in the last few weeks of the year. In special education, we have a projected budget balance of $40,277. This would have been about 10,000, well, it would have been exactly $10,676 less, with the exception that the legislature passed a one-time additional appropriation for excess costs, and that was Bolton's allotted amount. So that is to our benefit for sure. We have $47,697,000 savings in administration support and central services. Just about half of that is projected savings in legal services. And as you know, that is a fluctuating number depending upon where we are in various cycles for negotiations, whether or not we're part of a class action suit, which we were a few years ago nationwide. We were pulled into it. Or what happens with regards to special education and how many times we are taken to due process and the cost of that. Beth does an amazing job managing a lot of that on her own, but when we get to a due process situation, most of the time, she has to have legal counsel there as well, but sometimes she's able to even save money and do it herself. We don't anticipate any savings, zero line in operations and transportation. As you know, we have had a number of operations issues this year that you have transferred money into so that John could correct the various issues. With a subtotal of, or rather a total, I'm sorry, in salaries and wages, we had $494,199. Some of that is due to our unfilled paraprofessional positions. Some of that is due to people going out on maternity leave and taking additional time without pay. Some of that is due to the fact that we had people who retired or left the district. We brought in people potentially, in most cases, at a lower rate than the people who left. So in total, we are looking at a projected budget balance of $584,896. With the knowledge that you already committed $150,000 towards next year's budget. Right now, Casal's projected transfer to cover food service fund deficit, which is a much better number than it was before, is $40,000. We had a discussion at finance today, and I don't know if Ashley or Rhea want to chime in about that, but that tonight wasn't the night to do that transfer. Casal would prefer to wait for June to be fully done. And so I've put it on the I started the agenda for Dave for your July 16th meeting and put that on the agenda. So that is a transfer you can make in the rears because it's still regarding this year's monies. For a total revised projection of $394,896. The last piece that I just want to say about that amount, and this is in reference to last night's finance committee meeting, which I know we're going to get to budget a little bit later, but I want to call this out right now while it's fresh in everybody's mind. You may or may not know, well, I'm certain that you know that the Board of Education was cut. You may or may not know that the Board of Selectmen's actual budget for next year was not cut. They were able to actualize revenues from this year that were put forward and in savings that they have in this year's monies. I didn't know where we were yet because Casal wasn't done with this yet. But should the referendum not pass, I would advise you that I don't think it's a good idea to put forward this whole amount because we still don't know yet the final food service number. And we still have some outstanding pieces that we haven't paid for yet that will take us well into July. So, and the other factor that I just want to call out is this town and community has been in the habit for well over 30 years of taking, instead of just spending ad nauseum money at the end of the years, taking the remaining monies and putting it towards another year's budget a year out from now. So to help in next year's budget cycle towards the following year. So that's just also something to consider. Did that sum it up, Ashley and Rhea?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So in terms of discussion, I'm comfortable with, using that towards next year's budget rather than actualizing it in revenues, but open to others' thoughts as well.
That's a pretty significant amount of money. We could certainly make a difference if we go to a fourth referendum. But, all right, are we done with finance, right? Okay, do we have any community meetings to
Oh, sorry.
report on? Oh,
I think we do have to go through the referendum budget
is
reduction,
that not?
but later on.
It's on the agenda later.
enough business?
Okay.
Either one.
Okay. So,
Does anyone have community meetings to report on? Wednesday was on the Zoom. Do we have a PTA update from Mountain Zoom Land? Okay. All right, I will now turn things over to Director Goldsnyder for tonight's superintendent of schools report.
Great, thank you. I will turn this over to Director Julio Casper, who will talk a little bit about the strategic plan.
Very little bit, because this is going to be done by some of the amazing teachers who have agreed to come here on the last day of school in the evening. So we're very grateful for them. I'm just going to do the very quick introduction, which is our overview of the strategic plan. You've seen the updates throughout the year. And what you will see, much as in years past, each school has a plan directly tied to what the Bolton Public Schools strategic plan is. It is reviewed by academic leaders and administrators in the summer. I know this has been discussed as the year begins as well. It is presented to staff on opening days of school, and they revisit it in a number of different areas, sometimes PLC, sometimes staff meetings, sometimes in their own leadership meetings frequently. And it includes 3 multi-year goals to improve teaching, learning, and family and community partnerships. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Herrick and Assistant Tricky for BCS. No, you can go back one. Oh, that's good. I'm Jennifer Herrick. I'm the library media specialist at BCS and part of the instructional leadership team. At BCS, our team includes Principal Daryl Giard, Assistant Principal Amela Kelleher, representing both BCS and BHS, Dan Eyre, Stephanie Fauch, Chris Jones, and Chris Pallas, Sandy Mashricky and myself, Diana McClochie, Wendy Pagani and Kelly Bear, Tracy Wunsch and Donna Fisher, and Rebecca Richard and Lara Eaton. We work together as a team throughout the school year to refine and meet the goals of this plan. And we'll be working together over the summer. We already have 4 dates scheduled for a total of 12 hours that we will be getting together over the summer to continue work on the strategic plan. At BCS, we have 3 goals, and we created a little graphic to represent that. We are focusing on community, environment, and instruction, and making connections to enhance teaching and learning. Painting a picture to show how all our goals are connected and support each other, as well as our portrait of a graduate and our strategic plan. So our first goal is school, family, and community partnerships. And you can see on the slide the bulleted list of things that we focused on this year or worked on this year. The first was electronic communication. We used things such as Parent Square and Power School to communicate with families. We had biweekly newsletters that staff sent home. And we utilized social media to reach out to parents and the community as well. We had family events at the school, including our winter family night, open house, our meet and greet at the beginning of the year where the students can come and meet their teachers, parent-teacher conferences and student-led conferences, and several different PTA events. We also had student showcase events, which included things such as concerts, the recent art show, sporting events, a poetry slam, our spelling bee, and our academic awards. For our parent and community partnership or participation, we had guest readers who came in, especially during our Read Across America month. We had guest speakers come in, parent volunteers helping in classrooms. There were different surveys that went out throughout the year. Field trip chaperones. We have a partnership with Bentley Memorial Library, and our student council partnered with the senior center for 2 food drives during the school year. And we also have a partnership with local businesses such as Small Town Fresh. And then our last point for this goal, progress toward learning outcomes. We were communicating our teacher clarity plans, and we were doing assessment feedback.
And so our second goal is all about the learning environment that we create for our students, because that's when the best learning occurs, when there is a safe environment, when students feel like they can talk and we have that great relationship. And I think we do a really good job of that. Wait, what? I am. We went in the wrong order. It's the last day of school. We're going to be fine.
Our
It will
minds
be
are on
fine.
vacation.
It will all be fine.
Because Sandy can speak better to number 3 because it involves
Well, you
more
just
classroom
hop in.
stuff.
We'll be good.
Okay.
We'll be good. I'll start it. I think we do a really good job of creating a great classroom environment and a school-wide environment. And we do that through PBIS, the positive behavior. And we do a lot of things. So we have like Buster Brags that Mrs. Kelleher does on Fridays. And the kids love to hear that on announcements, like whose name is going to be called. And each classroom, we all have like incentives and dog bones and our charts. And the students really get into that. And every day at the end, they all say the BARC expectations of being kind and honest and acting responsibly. And that really is like, they know what the expectations is of how they should treat each other, and we should treat each other as, you know, students and teachers. We also have social emotional learning that goes on throughout the week. In K-5, we have the second step program that we use. And then in middle school, the school psychologists and social workers actually go into the classrooms and teach those second step lessons. And like I said, we also have different incentives in the classrooms that we use with students, and they're very invested in those. And I just think we're really lucky in Bolton to have really kind students who they want to do the right thing and they look out for each other. And that's also in part with the relationships that we have with families. It's just like a really nice place to be and to work. And another thing that we've added, I think it was last year, were the town hall meetings that we've been doing each trimester. So Mrs. Kelleher and Mr. Giard, they have like an agenda for what the assembly is going to be, and they ask for feedback from each grade level. Like, what do you notice is going on, like in the cafeteria or out at recess? And we kind of come up with a game plan and how we can best meet the needs of each grade level and to work on improving school climate. And we've talked about things like attendance, or I think at the last one, we gave out some awards about perfect attendance or recognizing citizenship. So that's like a really nice time to come together as grade levels and to meet with the principals. And then in the middle school, which I don't have as much interaction with, is they have a planner system. And that's a big part of keeping them on track. And we have something called RTL, Ready to Learn. So we're really trying to encourage students in the middle grades to be more independent and be ready to learn, like have a pencil, have your planner ready, where's your homework, and really help them build those executive functioning skills. So as they progress and get into high school, they really have a lot of success in those areas. And I think I kind of jumped to Ready to Learn as well. All right, how do you want to? Sure. All right. So the third one is all about instructional practices. And I think we've also worked really hard as a staff on improving our instructional practices and being reflective practitioners in our own craft. And so we've looked at standards. We've done a lot with curricula. I think you might have said in the last 10 years, almost all of our curriculum is new. And so we've worked really hard on that and reflecting based on the data and the assessments, you know, how can we refine our instructional practices and looking at the data and assessments. One of the things that we've done is continue to use IABs and FIABs, which is they're like a little assessments that do align with SBAC as well as standards that students are supposed to meet in each grade level. And we look at those those data points as grade level teams and in PLCs and with the administration, and we make decisions about, okay, what could next steps be for our instruction? Are there things that we need to reteach? Do we need to dig deeper into certain areas? So that has, I think, been really helpful to get students to progress along in their learning. And in K-6, really, over the last 2 years, we have done a ton with our reading and writing curriculum. In K-3, they just completed their first year of implementing bookworms. And the feedback I've heard from teachers is that they really love it. And that's the structured literacy. We're really seeing growth in our students as readers and writers. And then in 4th and 5th grade, this is our second year of implementation with Imagine Learning. In 6th grade, it's their first year. And I know as it being our second year, we've worked a lot now that we know the program with our instructional practices. And like, for example, at our PLCs this year with the instructional coach, we worked a lot on our writing rubrics and aligning them to the standard or the SBAC rubrics. And so students really know what's expected of them across the writing, the 3 types of writing, so that they can feel success and generalize a lot of those skills. Tell me when you want to pop in. The other thing that we've worked, so reading and writing, but also math. So we do continue to use the Ready Math program, and we're always working on those instructional practices, but there has been some updates to the younger grades in K and 1. So I know they've been working extensively with our math coach, Mrs. Nicoloci, on that. And then all of the I think is it elementary and middle doing the screener? Or it's elementary. We've actually started using this screener for number sense 3 times a year, and it's really informed us about what our kids are really great at with their number sense and understanding of numbers and foundational skills. And then again, areas that like, hey, we're missing the mark in this one area. Let's change our instruction in this area, or even pull in targeted groups. And I think the last one, and then I'll pick it over to you. We also in grades K through 8, we have MTSS, which used to be known as SRBI, but a multi-tiered support system in which, again, we look at data and we talk with the administrators and our grade levels and identify students who might be striving in an area that need extra intervention or something else. And we go through cycles with them with targeted instruction to try to quickly meet the need of whatever area they might need. So Ms. Kelleher is great with meeting with us, and we make decisions as a team on what students, have met the goal and can go on to other things, and then maybe what students continue to need our support.
Also, last year, the leadership team was asked to do peer visits in the classrooms. And it was just the leadership team that took part in that last year. This year, it was extended to the whole staff, which was incredible. It was great to have all of the staff get into different classrooms, see what everyone's doing. Some grade level teachers went a grade above to see what was happening in that grade level. And then later in the year for a second peer visit, they went to the grade below to see what goes on in that grade level. And then specialist teachers, it's kind of great for us because we got to kind of pick where we wanted to go. And it was fun to see how different teachers teach different grade levels or how they implement different discipline and things in their classroom that we could carry over into the specials areas to help us out a little bit. And then the last thing are the PLCs, the professional learning. Each grade level has a PLC. I said weekly, but weekly. And they use this time to plan, to learn new programs and curriculum, to analyze data. And then our leadership team meets every 2 weeks with a focused agenda where we discuss school matters, upcoming professional development, planning for PD days, 4th Tuesday meetings. And we also present new learning at the leadership team meetings. Each member of the leadership team had a chance this year to present something new to the leadership team. And we're hoping next year to bring that to some of those things that we learned to the staff as well, so that we can share to the larger community.
Good evening. I'm Dan Hare, and this is Sunny Singh, and we're two members of the high school leadership team. And we're going to give you an update on some of our accomplishments this year in our portion of the improvement plan. And you can see the list of all our leadership team members up there. You met them all at the October meeting, so we'll move on to the next slide. So our first goal here was continuing to promote the school, home, and community partnerships to support the learning of students. And a lot of what you're going to hear from our presentation here mirrors what happened at the center school. Our goals were really similar. But here's some examples in the bullets of what we did at the high school, and I'll just give you some examples for each one. So as far as the technologies that we use to communicate, all of the teachers in the school have been using Parent Square, as have the administrators, the guidance counselors, and even the athletic directors and coaches to communicate with students and families. All the students in the school have the student version of that app installed on their own devices. So teachers and coaches and we're able to communicate directly with the students as well. So that has been a really valuable tool for us. We have been posting a lot more on social media. Facebook and Instagram, as well as YouTube. Mr. Maselli's been posting concerts, art shows, and other events, along with a live stream of the graduation ceremony on YouTube. And we've also been putting out a new bi-monthly newsletter that was created by one of our teachers that gives a glimpse of what's going on in the school. And I'll actually show a sample of that in a moment on the next slide, so you can see what that looks like if you haven't had a chance. For that second bullet there, we've done a lot of work in the community and in the town with different organizations. And so a few examples are our culinary and bake shop classes have been really active with the senior center. They did a Thanksgiving event. They invited senior citizens into the school for a cookie tasting in December. They also supported the Bolton Road Race with some baked goods. We do blood drives each quarter, sponsored by the National Honor Society. We've been putting on art displays at the Bentley Library as well as the New England Homes. Our students have participated in the community September 11th ceremony as well as the Memorial Day parade and ceremony. And then here in the school, we put on an open house both for grades 9 through 12 students and their families in the early fall, and then one for prospective grade 8 students later in the fall. Our student council has been really active in the community doing leaf raking and a food drive. And then finally, we brought in a group called Amplify that visited, did a survey with the students, did some professional development for the faculty, and also a workshop with some of our students here. So we really did quite a lot for that second bullet. And then the third one, as far as sharing student achievement and growth, we are on our third year of parent-teacher conferences, offering those at Bolton High School. We did that twice this year to mirror what the center school does. We did a lot more with the students' summative digital portrait of the graduate portfolios this year. Those are a graduation requirement that's scored, and all the seniors actually presented their portfolio to other students during one of the connection periods during the school days. So that was a new portion of that program that we implemented this year. We also enhanced our capstone project this year. The projects were also shared with the student body during connections, as well as having evening presentations that were open to the public as we've done it in previous years. And we've also expanded our interdisciplinary arts evenings. We've had concerts, we've had some coffee house events that were supported by community groups like Bolton Music Works. And we had an interdisciplinary choral concert and culinary showcase, as well as art shows at some of our concerts. So we've really been trying to collaborate as much as we can and bring community members in for different types of events, at the same time. Oh, and this is a sample of a slide from our newsletter that we've been doing twice a month, and that's been posted somewhere on the town website as well as on social media. So we're hoping to get more of those out next year because our chemistry teacher, Peter Kazuda, did a really amazing job putting that together this year.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Sunny Singh, and I'm going to be updating you with the second goal. We have done very similar to the middle school. Some things going to overlap. So this year we have modified and enhanced our connection structure, which basically means this year the freshmen are part of the freshmen are now part of they were always part of the connection, but they're now introduced to the upperclassmen. This is a great idea, I think, because it has a lot of different benefits. For example, the upperclassmen can serve as a peer tutor, or they can model strong study habits. So especially when these seniors are doing their presentations at the end of the year on their portfolios, the freshmen were able to see that presentations. Now they have a meeting behind this portfolio that they will be working on, then they'll be presenting at the end of the year. We also have we have also added the grade level meetings for the portfolios that Ms. Teitelbaum runs. Our second bullet point, we also, similar to the middle school, we have implemented the MTSS structure. It's a program very similar to the middle school where students are receiving support in a certain skill. I have one student, actually I have two students who received the MTSS support this year. And one of them is actually in the verge of failing. So they did come out at the end passing the class and as well as gain some skills. Our third bullet point, we continue to celebrate student and staff achievement. There's a lot of things going on here at Bolton High School. For example, one of the things that we're doing is that Ms. Goulet does the student recognitions of the month, student of the month, and a staff of the month. She'll send out an email at the end of each month where the staff has an opportunity to vote on the student of the month. Once the student is selected, their names are then announced in the morning announcements. Ms. Lynch continues to send birthday emails. So if it's a staff's birthday, we receive a friendly email from Ms. Lynch. As you may have heard from our graduating class, some of the class spoke about the Spirit Day. It's a great thing at Bolton High School. A lot of kids look forward to Spirit Day and they dress up, and it's a fun thing that promotes a positive culture at Bolton High School. And that's organized by the Student Council.
All right, moving on to our third goal. Some of our accomplishments here, again, are similar to what the center school reported on. We had multiple peer observations with a collaborative reflection component that were part of our PLC structure this year. And one of those was actually a student observation. And this was kind of a new concept that we tried that worked really well. Each teacher chose a student from their class and went to observe that student in a different classroom setting to see how they interacted with the teacher and their peers in a different type of classroom. And that was really helpful. It gave us a lot of new insight about our students, as well as doing some peer observations where we were observing another teacher and learning about their instructional practices. We did a lot of work in our PLCs, and it was also a PD topic throughout the year as far as enhancing the ways that we provide feedback to students, making it clear, along with the teacher clarity work that we've been doing, helping them understand where they are and what they need to do to meet expectations and be successful. And that really ties into our MTSS program that we implemented this year. Our whole faculty participated in professional development for tier 1 strategies. And that was all shared at the April Board of Ed meeting. So you've already heard a whole presentation about that, so we can move on.
At the high school level, we've added the fourth goal at the beginning of the school year. So we have implemented a new cell phone policy and procedure this year. There's a cell phone caddy in each classroom where a student comes in. I ask them to put their phones away in the caddy, and that's what they do. During assessments, they're supposed to have their phones in the caddy. When students leave the classroom for a bathroom break or they want to have a trip to guidance, they're supposed to leave their phone in the caddy. And that's actually a positive change. I believe it's just minimizing the distraction from cell phones. We also had a training on cybersecurity. I believe that was a district-wide PD that all staff received. It was a PD on cybersecurity, how to protect ourselves and create safe passwords. We have expanded access to platform to foster appropriate technology, which means we've used a lot of different apps and technology this year, but to mainly to name the few are Securely and Brisk. Securely is a tool where the teacher use that tool to monitor students on their Chromebook. So if I have a student doing an activity in my classroom, I could see what each student is doing in my class on their laptop because I have access to Securely. As well as Brisk. Brisk is another tool that our English department and other department uses. It's an AI detector tool. It kind of creates a video for the teacher of how the document is created. So if there's a large text that's being added to the document, it sort of alerts the teacher, where did that text came from? Is it created by AI? And then the teacher can investigate further. So those are some of the things that we're trying here at Bolton High School. As AI is emerging, it's evolving. We are continuing to have these AI-related conversations in our PD and PLCs. And I think we need to just continue with this because that's not going to go away. Thank you.
I hope that this works. If not, someone's going to have to put it for me. This was a question that was asked last year when we were discussing what happened in how our professional development and how our additional trainings took place. Most of the work is done in-house and in school, and you've heard all the teachers refer to their PLC time, their team time. We also have staff meetings in fourth Tuesdays, which is an additional hour every month, where teachers stay after school in both schools to discuss relevant issues and to work on things that need to be worked on at their buildings. We have, of course, our early release days, professional development days, and our team and content area. It's in addition to the leadership meetings that were just discussed. Let's see if it works. It works. The key is to point it to the computer. So these are just a few of our professional development opportunities that were given to teachers. And we're also very careful to make sure that funding is put aside in case someone comes up with something that we didn't plan for. Hey, there's this local conference that's happening. We want to be able to say, yes, you absolutely can go. So Bookworms Professional Development at the elementary school. We had 3 staff members do an AI micro-credential. Mickey Klepper, the library media specialist here, did that, and Kelly Bear, the instructional coach, did that at BCS, as did I. The high school has been working on executive functioning within their MTSS, and that has been a focus there. The English teachers in both schools, we had 5 teachers attend the NCTE conference. That is a massive national conference. We don't usually have too many come our way. But this one happened to be in Boston, and teachers were able to drive and attend, which was great. I'm glad they were able to do that. We have a new literacy assessment in K-6, and that training took place. Also, Reflex Math is a program we've had in district. It was here before I came here, but we've had such turnover. People weren't sure exactly kind of how to harness that. It's a fact fluency program that kids can use in school and at home, and not everybody knew exactly how to use it because sometimes that word of mouth doesn't travel fast enough, so they provided training and innovation collaboration with Ms. Moore, who attended with her students. STEM coach was Common Lit was a comprehension assessment that was piloted by middle school and high school ELA teachers. We did have the social studies teachers trained as well in case they had some content that they wanted to work on that was aligned. Serve Safe Food Safety was Mr. Jones, and he is able to, I believe he is now able to offer that. No? Next.
He's finishing up in the
The
fall,
next
still more work to do,
stage.
yeah.
Yes, he's going to be able to offer that training, so that's great. The AP Institutes, as teachers come and go, we want to do some additional AP offerings. Those are offered in the summer. We have 2 teachers attending this summer. And then these next 4 are things that occur every year. We have the student-led conferences. Any state professional conference We encourage the teachers to attend. We have so few state level conferences for different content areas. English is just trying to get theirs off the ground. Atomic is math. I know that Ms. Herrick has attended Castle workshops and other things to help develop the library. CMEA for music, and the acronym I can never really pronounce if there's a word for it for PD and health, but that long one is PD and health. I'm not going to try. Ongoing instructional coaching. You've heard the BCS teachers talk about time in their PLC with the instructional coach. That's when that's taking place mostly. And coaching councils. Those take place in Hartford. And those are half days for our coaches to meet with coaches in the entire CREC region. We continue the teacher clarity and success criteria that is ongoing. We have books and materials that we give to our new teachers at new teacher induction in August so that they have a copy of that. Just reminding myself that I have to order those now. And MTSS planning and tier 1 strategies, which is another piece, so that tier 1 is basically what our core curriculum is. What do we do for all of our students and are they being successful there? And those meetings happen during PLC to look at the data and to determine the level of success. Evaluation and feedback and the regular classroom evaluations that we all do. All staff did have the basics of cybersecurity. We send out phishing emails every month and we get a report to see kind of who fell for it. I did once, but so sometimes they're very tricky and they sound very but it's just a little test to see how much better we're getting at identifying phishing emails. They also send out a little newsletter that's called Scam of the Week that helps people just in emails that they're getting on their personal email or texts that they're getting on their phone to try to be wary of that and to keep everyone sort of on their toes. In the fall, we did have an implicit bias training for all staff to sort of recognize where we may have our own personal biases, and the paraprofessionals received behavioral and instructional strategy for their training hours. Thank you so much. Do you have any questions about that PD or anything that any of the teachers can answer for you?
I have no specific questions at this time, other than, could you send us this, the slides?
I believe Christina was in the minutes.
I have a question.
Yes.
How are the PLCs and the team meetings and all that going this year as compared to last year?
I think that's a question for the building administrators, but from everything I've seen, they've been going extraordinarily well. There are some limitations of time. We can't fabricate extra time, but I think everyone's doing the best within the time that they have every week. They come to meetings prepared, they get right to work. They're half the time extending into the next, like just barely making it, getting up into class, and the meetings go for 30 minutes each week at BCS. And I know at BHS, it's mixed content areas and grade levels based on their schedule. But yes,
It has a very focused agenda. Some of the weeks, it might be the instructional coach working with a group of teachers on a specific reading or math piece. Some weeks, if Mrs. Keller and myself, maybe Smarter Balance is coming up, working about proctoring small groups. So every week has a specific focus. It's 30 minutes, so it's if they get in the door, we get right to work. There's never enough time, so we make very good use of the time we do that.
I do have a question. That was excellent presentation. And tons of stuff. I mean, so much. I would like to know and maybe there isn't something for each school. Is there one thing that you're really proud of? Like is going really, really well out of all that stuff that we did? I mean, is it like, hey, we had the most AP credits ever in high school, or we had the most training of, in professional development than ever this year? Is there any one thing that you're really proud of in each school that's going really well? Because we should keep doing it.
And I think it was a question that Mr. Davey posed at another meeting about how do we drive these plans, and it's very data driven. So like preliminary aspect data started to come out, recent survey results from parents, student, paraprofessionals, surveys have come back. So we plan on this color myself, but we'll bring those surveys to our leadership teams over the summer. And from some initial looks, some of the things that we're talking about, have gleaned some positive successes. So that's just kind of we'll present that data in the fall, but there's been some positive things that we've already seen and very recent data that drives this work that tells us we're doing the right things. So kind of a broad answer, but to your question.
All right, thanks.
I think if you want about this past year, and again, as Dan mentioned, we did a big presentation in April on MTSS. We took kind of a risk coming into this year. We kind of took the typical model and threw it out and asked the question, how can we service more kids in a meaningful way? And we were super successful at that. A combination of creative scheduling and some teachers really willing to dig in, and some of our new staff that found their voice early on to bring ideas from other districts. What we did supporting those students who needed that little extra this year was heads and tails above what we've ever done in the past. So that's for this year, that's what I'm most proud of.
That's great. Great, thanks.
Yeah, great presentation. I was going to say, these are all wonderful things. Are there certain challenges to this particular year? I guess, this is all the good stuff. What would you say has been a challenge?
There's never enough time. And we're lucky because we have the early release time that you built into the calendar, so thank you. If we could continue that, it's amazing. But there's never enough time, so we share those PLC times with the instructional coach, the items that Mrs. Keller and myself have. We're at those meetings with the instructional coaches as well. The time, we try to squeak out as much as we can is always about most.
Thank you.
You have any questions?
No, 100%, really, that's what it comes down to, for sure. Time of the day.
All right, I had a couple of questions. First, just echo my colleagues. It was a great presentation, and personally, I am really appreciative of all of the information presented, not only with this one, but the MTSS presentation in April. I came away with that finally understanding what MTSS was, and felt like I had a good grasp on it. So the information you're sharing with the board has been great. Again, personally, I'm really pleased to see that your emphasis on communication. I know that's something that the board has been asking for many years, fairly persistently. So I'm glad to see the continued efforts with that. I see the posts online and try to engage with them. So that's good. So thank you for all of that work. Question for the center school, the town hall meetings. I don't know that I've heard about them before. Are those meetings with the entire student body or just with the staff?
Great question. So it's all the students by grade level. So each trimester, Mrs. Keller and myself will pick usually on a Friday. And it's literally straight through 3:40 in the morning till 2:30, 20-minute meetings, 25-minute meetings. And we'll talk about some topics recently were like bullying and school climate. If there is an issue, how to report it. Also giving them strategies of how to intervene, talking through some scenarios in that meeting. And we showed up a graphic and we try to pare it down so it's age appropriate. So we talked to kindergartners a little differently than we talked to the first graders and then to the middle schoolers. Our most recent town hall, as you heard, was recognizing students with perfect attendance. And then we talked about how it was pretty cool because we talked, there's 4 kids in the whole school who had perfect attendance, and so they weren't at every single grade level. But we mentioned those names at every meeting because some of them had siblings or they knew that student or teachers had taught that student. So it's pretty cool to really wrap around, because that was years ago, we really made a big deal of perfect attendance. So we kind of brought that back. And some kids were like, well, what about if I was sick? We talked through the difficulties of getting to school. Then we give them a Q&A portion at the end of the town hall meeting. So it's a focused agenda. We reach out to the teachers and say, is there any specific topics you're seeing? For example, if they mention the cafeteria or other parts of the building, they kind of build off of that as well.
I was curious if you tied it in at all with kind of the history of the town meeting in New England as a core of democratic governance.
Yep. No, we don't follow specific models, more just being able to get the students together. We have a specific topic focus, and then we present a chance to talk as well.
Still, I can imagine that the students really appreciate having a chance to have their voices heard and be respected by adults. So that's a great initiative, I think. On the high school side, so I'm curious about the student observations. You mentioned that teachers picked one student in their class to observe in a different class. Was the intent behind that to focus on improving education for the individual student, or was this, did it have a broader focus and trying to understand?
Yeah, no, that's a fair question. So we've been doing peer observations, capturing some of that PLC because we have 80 minutes a week for that. We don't need to always sit in the same room for 80 minutes a week, right? So we captured some of that time to do observations, and we always try to have some kind of focus when you go out and observe. So the new idea, as Mr. Ayer mentioned this year, was the student piece. And the idea was, I'm curious, especially about a student that maybe is underperforming in my class. How do they look different, or even do they look different in somebody else's class? And it wasn't just the observation piece. It was that happened, but then the next time we came together, it was a conversation about, this is what I saw, and this is what and the dialogue, and then someone else would jump in, maybe who wasn't part of that, but also had that student or had the student the previous year. So in those small confidential groups, we could have that level of conversation about individual kids.
So it sounds like it's just a way to start conversations.
Exactly,
In
right.
one sense.
And in some cases, it was some aha moments for teachers.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask another question? Did you invent that? Like, or did you get some, like, where did that particular student piece come in?
We think we invented it. It was an idea that came out of conversations with the leadership team and the PLC planning. Because we tend to talk about students, and sometimes it's informally in the lunchroom, like, hey, this kid, did crappy on my test today. How are they doing for you? And we try to formalize some of those conversations when we talk about attendance meetings and those kinds of things. And I forget the precursor, but it really was an organic kind of conversation that came up. And then the leadership team said, well, let's do something with that. Let's look at these observations from a different lens.
I think it's remarkable. Thanks, Chris, for asking that question about it, because I didn't quite understand it until you just explained it here now. But I can imagine, right, that a teacher could be struggling to figure out, how do I change? What do I do something to get to this kid? Yet you just see another teacher do it and it's working. Oh, wow, that accelerated, skipped all these other ideas that I'm going to try to get through to the kid and try this because it seems to be working in the other class. That student's in. So that seems remarkable. Makes brilliant. Thanks.
It was a good activity.
I think what Joe and Daryl and the teacher leaders have spoken to tonight speaks volumes about the personalized learning experience that children receive in the Bolton Public Schools. And kudos to our teachers, our administrators, our support staff. Everybody's all in doing what is right and best for kids. And I think this presentation just puts that out there for everyone to see. So thank you, everyone. Great job.
Anyone else have any questions? Thank you to our teachers who stayed late on your last day of the year. I appreciate it. I know we all do. Feel free to take that off if you'd like. Or you can stay. It's like celebration of excellence, It's like, oh, you're welcome to stay. You did your thing.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Perfect sense.
And does that conclude, right, our superintendent schools reports? Moving on to unfinished business and the proposed 2025-2026 budget.
So if I could provide an update, Andrew, please. Last night, as you may all know, the Finance Committee reduced the Board of Education FY26 budget by an additional $252,536 for a total reduction thus far of $482,536. While, as you know, you're not voting on this budget tonight because the budget has not yet passed, I just wanted the board to be aware of, should it pass, coming up, what my reduction recommendations will be. That has come up at several meetings prior. So I also want to articulate further that if it does not pass at the next referendum, Superintendent Caruso is going to have to bring forward to you cuts in teaching positions and programs for kids. There are also cuts embedded in what I'm about to recommend. So the first cut of $230,000, we were able to manage with savings from new hires and insurance savings, open enrollment, and life changes, and that totaled $230,000. As of last night's cut, my recommendations will be to you to that first 230,000 that's already there, to cut a vacant 1.0 administrative assistant position at Bolton Center School. We just had a resignation a little bit ago for $85,062. To cut a 1.0 vacant para educator position for $67,172. And to reduce special education by $100,302 because we had an outplaced student just move out of district, so we do not need that outplacement money for next year. And that totals $482,536. I don't know if Ashley or Rhea or anybody else want to speak about last night.
Yeah, it was a long monthly meeting. I'd say the ask probably started a little higher, for the Board of Ed. But once we really started talking, we felt the Board of Selectmen should also share in that as well. Maybe not the same weight, given that most of the budget's coming from the Board of Ed, but then Superintendent Peck had walked us through these potential ones and we were comfortable, or at least this made sense to us, that recommendation. But from a finance standpoint, the revised budget will probably come to a 7% increase in the mill rate.
Exactly.
If you recall, the past budget referendum was a 9% increase, and then prior to that, it was a 12% increase. So
Yeah, it was a 9.5%, about a 9.5% going down to 7%. That's on the mill rate.
Correct.
But the actual increase to the budget was like 2-3%.
2-3%.
The actual, but the money budgeted is much lower.
In fact, with this reduction, it's a 1.72% increase for the Board of Education. And I think that's important that you all know that number.
Yeah, I think the reval situation has really kind of muddied this up because we're usually talking about the overall increase, but the mill rate situation has sort of made it so that the town is focused on that higher number.
yeah, I think it's also the revenue story too for the town, because we don't have as much revenue as we have in the past to make up for it. So while we only have a small increase in expenses, that decline in revenues has caused us to make up for it. I think it's a big part of the picture that not a lot of folks may understand.
Well, I guess we can all for the best on the next go round because it was certainly more lopsided than in recent years. People are tired overall of paying more, and I think it hurts up on the town level just as much as everywhere else. So
And if you listen to the minutes, there was discussion about, like, this is a firm number from the finance committee, and they would make very small increases if we had to come back. And that's that's got to be in the minute or the recording of the meeting. I think that's important to state here.
I think it's important to state too, I mean, say it again, the small increase in the budget and compare that to inflation. Like it's nothing, right? It's well below inflation for just this year, not accounting for previous years that we were below on those years too for the Board of Ed budget, right? And then I know there have been some that had said, hey, we have to make hard decisions on our spending and make cuts. And here it is. I mean, we're cutting positions. And we're well below the increase in compared to inflation, so it's like there's nothing left.
Well, and to that point, while the town had revenue to put towards lowering the mill rate, there was no cut to the Board of Selectmen budget.
Did capital get cut? So
No.
we're still above a mill there.
Yes.
I think have a cut during the first round. Cuts.
Yes.
Chris Davy had done a very good analysis of how we've done compared to inflation. Not only did he mention it earlier, but was it last year, maybe the year before, that we had done a very deep dive and shown that Bolton, we've been below not only the rate of inflation, but the rate of education spending generally statewide and everywhere else, which shows that we've been responsible, but
Yeah, a lot of credit is due to the administration and the staff for managing the money the town has provided extremely well. I don't think there's any question about that.
yeah, I wish people in the town-wide could understand that a little bit better. Maybe that's a communication thing that we can look forward. How we get that out, but
Well, maybe Chris could share the question and the response on social media. I don't know how he feels about that, but
Yeah, I mean, I could do that. Could share it in the next finance meeting.
yeah, I was gonna say the next finance meeting also. Let's give Ashley a real that information.
The social media aspect might help.
Yeah, the social media itself is pretty negative out there. I mean, I don't see it myself, but it's my understanding.
I did have a question, I don't know if you saw my email. We're expecting increased enrollment next year.
well, yeah, those are our projections, a little increase in enrollment. But we don't know, right, until our October 1st numbers. Those are the numbers that have to be provided statewide to State Department of Education, and those are considered your enrollment numbers for the year.
Is it, well, the projection, is a projection specific to one school or the other, or is it just all lumped together?
It's a projection for each grade level, just based on the data that we have.
Oh, okay, right. Just that, I heard the concerns too, right, about, well, the declining enrollment in mostly in high school, but the declining enrollment, well, we have also been decreasing our budget relative to inflation, right? And then now we're not even keeping up this year, right, with inflation, but if we're expecting increase in enrollment, we're starting to go the other direction at some point. We're gonna need more from more people. But I'm optimistic.
While you're talking, we got a text from Ashley, and thanks to my hearing aids, it actually got read to me. I know what it was. Ashley would like to know whether the Board of Ed can put out materials in the same way that Amanda has put out materials for the Finance Committee. I guess.
So I wish we could, but legally at this point you cannot. The budget number was set for the first referendum, and once that happens, our ability, let me put it this way, our ability to communicate using a school-based communication system, Parent Square, cannot be done. What you all may choose to do on social media is a different story, because that is not owned by the district.
So in our individual capacities, we could split things out.
Yes.
And it as this is the board saying, go vote or vote a certain way or anything like that.
Yeah, you have to be really careful with that, unfortunately. But certainly you can share information that you have.
Do we have any more discussion? Hopefully we don't go any further. All right, on to policies and the second read. Do we have a motion to approve policy 5131.9 Connecticut School Climate Policy?
So moved. I'll second.
Does anybody have any questions or comments or discussion on this policy? All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. And opposed or abstaining? That passes. On to BHS NIASC update.
Okay, so in September, BHS was required to submit a substantive change report to NIASC as a result of the elimination of Dean of Students position. NIASC outlines what they refer to as substantive change, which are any changes in the operations of a high school that fall into this category must be reported to NIASC by the school's principal and NIASC co-chairs within 60 days of the change. Typically, NIASC responds to a substantive change by requesting a special progress report. NIASC then required a special progress report from BHS. When any special progress report is required, a letter is sent to the school principal, copied to me and the board chair. Responses are required to be submitted via the NIASC accreditation portal by the principal and the co-chairs of the steering committee, which are Jen Carvalho and Abby Sacco. Only the principal and co-chairs of the steering committee have access to the accreditation portal per NIASC. A letter from NIASC explains what information must be submitted via the portal. For the required March special report, the questions requiring response were submitted to the portal on time. In May, NIASC requested an additional special progress report due September 1st, providing detailed information on the impacts on the school's ability to align with the standards for accreditation pertaining to the following. Provide an update on any activities by the district or the BOE relative to providing additional administrative support for students and staff, given the impact of the loss of Dean of Students. In the letter, NIASC states it will review the school's accreditation status when it considers the special progress report, which is due September 1st. No additional administrative support has been provided. The commission will consider placing the school on warning status. A letter from NIASC requiring an additional report by September 1st was again sent to Joe, myself, copied to me, and to Andrew. Myself, Beth, Joe, and the co-chairs, if they are available next week, and incoming Superintendent Caruso are going to be meeting next week to discuss the needs and potential ideas. Superintendent Caruso will be sharing this with the board at the July meeting. So, and I did share with the board last summer that this could happen. And as we discussed last summer and we've discussed during this year, we would need to be discussing and examining the needs as we went through this year and figured out what we had already put in place. Was it working? How did it work? How well did it work? And are there other needs that have not been met? Which we're now able to have that post-autopsy look now that the school year is over. Jen, would you like to say anything as co-chair?
No, I think you did a great job summarizing the process. For both reports, our initial one that outlined the substantive change and the special report follow-up, it was simply a report of facts. We bulleted out. These were the duties of Ms. Johnson, the Dean of Students in the past, and this is, where those responsibilities have shifted or if they have not been able to continue due to the lack of a Dean of Students position. So it was a very factual, literally bulleted out report.
Well, it's very concerning, obviously, but I look forward to hearing what our end of year analysis is, and if that report will show anything different than the previous report, which I, despite being CC'd, have not seen until yesterday. Given the budgetary impacts of the current year, I think it's clear that that position will not be coming back. So if we can think of creative ways to amend whatever we think our deficiencies are, be all ears to hear them. You don't have any questions? Do you have anything else to add?
The only question is, so we'll have a presentation from Income Superintendent Crusoe in July. Will the board have a chance to review prior to whatever is submitted? Will the presentation be the full letter that you plan to respond with?
I don't know that yet, and I don't know if the board is actually allowed to review before it's submitted. That is something we're going to have to check with NEASC on, because back to who has access to the portal and who doesn't. Just like when they come to do the accreditation visit, there's like maybe a 5 or 10 minute meeting with the superintendent, and the rest is with the steering committee and the teachers. It really isn't even directed by Joe, and Jen can speak more to that than I can.
Yeah, I mean, it's very much they want to know from the inside, from the teacher perspective. It's very much all of our committees for NEASC, our subcommittees are chaired by teachers in the school. The principal's role is only to serve on the steering committee and submit whatever paperwork is required by NEASC, but everything else is driven by the teachers with input from community during our self-study year. But the reports themselves, it's teacher driven.
That makes sense. I was trying to understand the
I
reason
think
why.
also, just for clarity, I think it's two different things, right? So I think what our incoming superintendent comes up with after our meetings, and we talk about like, hey, this is kind of where we're at. Here's a report to the board of status. I think that could be very different than where we are in September. They're giving us to the school year start to say, here's status, not what are you planning, what are you thinking, what are your ideas, what went well, what didn't. It's what to Jen's point, your factual pieces. So they're a little different as well.
Yeah, I was trying to understand the communication that Andy would have been CC'd on. What his role is as the chair.
I think it's just notification and letters that we.
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you not get?
No.
I will mention that to the folks at the Ask then, because it.
I'll have to look back.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure that I did not. I had to ask for it yesterday because we only, even in preparation for tonight, got the response letter, but not what was being responded to, nor did we see the change letter.
I'll check with Ms. Gary on that. Yeah.
I think what Ashley was asking was not to interfere or change, but more curiosity of what is being said and how we may be able to have an impact on what the factual reporting is. But to your point, I don't think that 1 month from now, the report will be done. Doesn't need to be submitted until September, so.
And they ask for all of those special reports. And to give an analogy for the board, when I first started here, we were just starting this building project. And the number of special reports, it was every 18 to 24 months. And they want a direct answer to a specific question. It's different than the big process where there's a large report. It's a specific answer to a specific interrogative. And the special reports, when anything is going on, again, like the building, are very frequent.
Right. For example, a more recent special report that we had to do was after our decennial visit in 2019, we had our follow-up report that we had to submit, but because of COVID, we had a lot of areas in that report that were to be determined. We can't address this right now because of COVID. We can't do this right now because of COVID. So as a result, they asked for a special report where we had to follow up on 6 or 7 different prompts that they specifically said, please answer these questions for us. So as Joe mentioned, the special reports kind of percolate up, pop up based on needs and what NEASC needs for additional information. So We have no way of predicting when we're going to get hit with a special report or when we're going to be requested to submit one. So.
I have a question. I didn't print these and read them, and it's pretty, there's a lot here, and I wish I did that. I just don't comprehend, I don't retain as much when I'm reading online. But it looks to me that they're saying that they expect another replacement supervisor. Is that true? Is that the impression you have?
My interpretation of it was they were looking for us to respond to the change. And the change is not, the response doesn't have to be, we put a full-time dean back. We understand it's not where any of us are at. But I think they're looking to say, for us to say, here's the plan to kind of fill the gaps created there.
Do they ask for data? Do they ask you to demonstrate student achievement, behavior, any of the areas that your professional learning teams, any of those things? Do they ask you for specific data to indicate whether you're being successful? Because from where I sit, it sounds like you're doing you are successful, that this is a very successful program here. And I'm getting the impression after reading this that that's not the impression they have.
So it depends on what aspect of the report you look at. We did get commended for certain things that are going well. So they did, I apologize. I don't have it pulled up in front of me right now, the report, but I know they commended the work we were doing with MTSS. They commended our PLC work. So they did recognize like, hey, you've made these changes. This looks like it's working out well for you. Kudos for that. Here's areas where based on what you told us, you've implemented to address this change that we as a NEASC association believe might still be falling short of what our standards are. So it wasn't 100% negative, the letter. They did, give us some commendations for some of the changes we made that, they acknowledge like that sounds like a great solution. That sounds like that's working. MTSS was one of the ones they highlighted. And then they said, but it still seems that there are areas that we addressed that just said, we don't have someone to do this right now, that they still, from their perspective, find concerning.
So which letter was that? Because I'd like to, what was the date of that?
That was the initial one that we got sent
That's the
for
initial-
May, first week of May.
May 6th?
That sounds about right. It was the beginning of May.
Yeah, it could be that your end of year analysis is that things look better in certain areas than others, or maybe that it looks worse in certain areas than others. And how do this get addressed? And what they asked for is administrative support, which is a very loosely defined wording. Could mean basically anything.
Can you tell me which areas they felt that there was improvement needed?
I think a lot of it was in the letter, but we just didn't have
Really?
enough time. I mean, I didn't have enough time to really
If we put the
analyze.
letter completely aside, just looking for the administration's honest feedback, what do you think we're struggling with? What are those things?
I think, with all due respect, I would want to organize my thoughts and talk to the superintendent and the acting superintendent, kind of put, I don't think I want to answer that right off the cuff. I want to organize that for you, which I think is the goal for next week.
Yeah, and
And I also think to have feedback from Jen and Abby as the teachers, because that's what NEASC is seeking as well. I mean, right, there's Joe's perspective, 100%, but NEASC is teacher driven for accreditation. So that is the other important component of it, right? We put a lot of good things in place you know, for example, like the PLC captains, additional responsibilities for Todd, and that we bumped up that stipend. We made Leah, the school psychologist went from 0.8 to 1.0 to support kids and as well as kind of take over the whole choice component of support. So, you know, there's other pieces that we now need to sort of post autopsy, right? To look at like, what are the other pieces that maybe we need to shore up to, one, ensure we're meeting the needs of kids, we're meeting the accreditation standards and doing what we need to be doing. And so I think that's where the recommendations may be coming forth, that there may be some things, maybe there's not, but we haven't had time to sit down and do that autopsy yet.
Yeah, and I'm sure from your end, that the end of year whirlwind sort of didn't allow that kind of reflection, and over coming weeks, you would need to do that. And from my standpoint, like, I just have gotten all of this information in the last 48 hours, and I just from a read through have all kinds of questions, but I'm not prepared like you to have a significant conversation about it, because I just didn't have time yesterday or the day before to read through and organize my thoughts and say, well, how could we help you with this, or how could we rearrange something to more directly benefit that, or all of those kinds of things. So I think for July, we'll be coming back. I'll be in California on a computer, eagerly anticipating this conversation. Anything else?
I'll just say thanks for explaining more of the process for this whole topic. It was just a couple of days ago, and I'm like, what is this all about? I know I knew this year on the board, but still.
Yep.
Thanks for explaining.
Anybody else? Alrighty, on to new business and 2025-26 lunch prices.
Talk a little about.
Yes, just very briefly, I see the motion looking to raise a little bit. I know that have a little bit of a shortfall there, so.
So 2024, 2025, the board raised breakfast and lunch prices by 25 cents at each school. Breakfast BCS went to $2.25 and $2.50 at the high school. Lunch at BCS went to $3.50 and BHS to $3.75. The USDA paid lunch equity tool has not yet been released. However, the average target price for school year 24-25 was $3.85 for lunch. And while we did not meet that, we came close. Further, the state of Connecticut Child Nutrition has determined the new target price for lunch is $4.05. Basically, we're at the USDA and state of Connecticut direction for pricing. And if we don't show that we're using the tool and increasing our prices to get closer to the target price, the state can order us to raise our prices, or we won't receive USDA funding. Further, if we were to lose USDA funding, would mean that we would need to raise prices of lunches to at least $7, or we can keep our prices the same and the BOE would have to make up the difference, and that's not a budgeted item. Lastly, we'll continue to use the same process for applying for free and reduced lunches. So at this point, with all the additional federal monies now gone for child nutrition programs in schools, with the rising costs of goods and a required increase to minimum wage, the recommendation is to raise breakfast and lunch prices by 25 cents at each school. So breakfast at BCS would be $2.50. BHS would be $2.75. Lunch at BCS, $3.75, and BHS to $4. So that's what we're looking for a motion to be.
I'll make the motion. I'm always asking everybody else. But I am asking for a second.
I'll second.
Is there anyone who has any questions or comments about this?
I do. Does anything change besides the price with the food? I mean, we raised the prices, but
Well, we
the
did.
food change for the kids?
We did do a survey of students this past spring. food services. We sent it out to kids at BCS and the high school, all kids. I think it was, did we do it from middle school up? I don't think we did the lower elementary grades.
Yeah.
And we had a bunch of questions to find out about favorite meals, what they would like to see. And food services will be using that information to kind of change some of the foods and maybe get rid of some of the things that kids were saying they didn't like or that nobody bought. We are trying to increase, we were looking at how often students bought breakfast or lunch and to see if we can maybe increase some of the options at breakfast, for example, if those numbers were really low. So we are looking at some of that. We did collect data and we'll be using that data to kind of drive some of our food services decisions. I know Christine Wallace had some ideas about some other food items and some things we can do for kids, maybe making some special occasions, special lunches. So we are working on that because we wanted to hear from the kids and we heard from them. So now we want to honor some of their requests.
And that's great. I think it's good to tie them together, right? Because it's like, we're raising prices, but you're not doing anything or taking the feedback or whatever. But, I was poking around online and looking at, well, school ratings and the NIST rating for, I think this year for us has us, as Bolton Schools, worst grade is the food. It's like a B-. It's gotten worse. So just if somebody's coming from out of town or whatever, or even in town saying, you're raising the prices and we're the worst at this, how do we make it better? Or should I go to this school and move to this town?
So I think to your point is a great point in that. So we did realize that kids weren't buying school lunches or school breakfast. So, which is why we put the survey out to see kind of what they like, what they would like to see in the cafeterias. And also we've talked about, changing the appearance of the cafeteria, making it more welcoming, making it more appealing. So those are some of the things that we are working on, moving forward.
Thanks.
I bet asking the kids what foods they like and don't like is an amusing conversation. I don't know if you were gonna say Ashley
Go ahead.
Pajoli's question, which was, are we still expecting a shortfall next year at the end of the year with this price increase?
Kristen could maybe answer that, but I would say yes.
Yes, I believe so because wages continue to go up. We had another increase mid-year this year, or I think it was on minimum wage. So that and the rising cost of food is really hurting us. And to Chris's point, I want to applaud the Beth and the group for doing a great job, right? Like trying to dig in and figure out how we make it better, right? And we are trying. We also have an RFP out right now for a food service company to see if we get any bids. If not, we're going to be looking for a new part-time manager. But there is also there's some pretty awful constraints on food from the USDA, which is not helpful either. I'm just going to put that out there.
Maybe Trump can blow that up. He's blowing everything else up, let's just get rid of that. Okay, anyone else have any questions, comments? Ashley says, totally understand, very difficult times, thank you. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye. Aye. And opposed or abstaining. And that brings us to resignations.
We have no resignations to report on at this time.
Lovely. All right, no future business, I imagine. So looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. I'll second.
Questions, comments, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I'm opposed or abstaining. Summer is here.